2,000 years ago, the city of Jericho sat just 20 kilometers outside Jerusalem. It was a dense, highly profitable economic hub in first-century Palestine, flooded with merchants and foreign goods. Living right in the middle of that wealth was a man named Zacchaeus. In Hebrew, his name literally translates to pure or innocent. His actual life stood in stark contrast to that meaning. He was a chief tax collector. He held a lucrative contract with the occupying Roman Empire, allowing him to legally extort his fellow citizens to line his own pockets. Because he weaponized his position against his own people, the local Jewish community placed him in a specific despised category, a chief sinner. He held absolute financial power over his neighbors, while possessing zero social or spiritual belonging. When Jesus entered Jericho, his reputation as a teacher and miracle worker had drawn massive crowds. Hearing the commotion, Zacchaeus felt a sudden, uncharacteristic urge to step away and simply see what this man looked like. Immediately, he hit two walls. First, he was notoriously short. Second, the crowd despised him, forming a physical, human barrier to block his view. For a man who made his living taxing the transit of goods, walking away from his booth during a crowded event was an expensive decision. Every minute he spent trying to glimpse a passing teacher meant actively losing profit. When someone who has dedicated his entire existence to accumulating wealth willingly abandons his post for something he cannot purchase, it points to a massive, unfillable vacuum in his life. In first-century Middle Eastern society, wealthy and powerful men were expected to operate with strict decorum. Maintaining public composure and dignity was a primary measure of a person's worth. Zacchaeus completely abandoned that standard. He hiked up his traditional long robes to expose his legs, committing a highly shameful cultural taboo, simply so he could sprint ahead of the dense crowd. Spotting a sycamore fig tree overhanging the road, he pushed his desperation a step further. He hoisted his small frame up the heavy trunk and climbed into the thick branches to get a clear vantage point. He willingly committed social suicide. By stripping away his remaining shreds of public dignity, Zacchaeus proved that genuine spiritual hunger overrides the basic human instinct for self-preservation. As the procession moved down the road, the narrative suddenly froze. Jesus stopped directly beneath the branches of the sycamore tree, looked up, and called this pariah by his actual name. He didn't make a polite request. He issued a direct command, declaring that he must stay at Zacchaeus' house today. This request carried severe religious implications. Strict religious laws dictated that entering a tax collector's home or eating their untithed food would instantly render a person spiritually impure. The reaction from the street was visceral and immediate. The adoring fans instantly mutated into an angry, grumbling mob, disgusted that a recognized holy teacher would willingly become the guest of an extortionist. Jesus deliberately shattered the strict purity laws of his era. He risked his own social standing and religious reputation to cross the physical threshold of the most corrupt man in the city. Inside the house, that direct proximity to grace triggered an immediate response. Without being prompted, Zacchaeus initiated a massive, completely voluntary financial audit of his entire estate. Rabbinic law expected citizens to give 20% to the poor, but Zacchaeus pledged a massive 50%. Secondly, for those he extorted, the law required double restitution, but he declared he'd repay victims 4 times the amount. Running the math on those two pledges reveals a stark economic reality. By executing these payouts simultaneously, the wealthiest man in Jericho likely bankrupted himself over the course of a single afternoon. True repentance requires action. It is a measurable, radical correction of past wrongs that completely defy standard financial logic. Following this declaration, Jesus delivered a final, public verdict to the grumbling crowd outside. He officially declared Zacchaeus to be a true son of Abraham. That statement instantly neutralized the crowd's label of chief sinner. It restored Zacchaeus to his community and allowed him to finally live up to the actual definition of his name, pure. Jesus then established the overarching theological mission behind the entire encounter, stating that the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. Just as Jesus stopped at the sycamore tree, He knows exactly who you are and where you are right now. You do not need to clean up your life before receiving grace. You only need the courage to open the door and let it do its work.